Welcome to Quiltologie, brought to you by Fabric Editions. My name is Kristen, and along with Fabric Editions, we've put together some short videos of quilting concepts to help you jumpstart your quilting experience. Today's lesson is going to be on strip piecing. Strip piecing is a simple way of sewing several strips of fabric together to create a block, and it's much more accurate than trying to sew each individual piece together. To begin, you take your piece of fabric and you line up the selvages. You know that it's your selvage because usually there's some dots, or if you take your finger, you cannot pull any threads, where from the raw edge you can see threads will be pulled. So you first line up your selvages, and you pick a line on the mat so you can get your fabric straight, and you square up your fabric simply by placing your ruler that extends the length of the fabric. Pick a line and go ahead and trim off the edge so you know you're working with a straight cut. We will be cutting 2.5-inch strips for this project. So what we will need to do next is simply take our fabric and cut 2.5-inch strips. And it's always good to measure twice and cut once so you're not wasting any fabric. So I know I have 1, 2.5. And I have my first strip. Next, because we're doing 3 strips together, we will take our other fabrics and do the same process. Line up your selvages. Pick a mark on our mat. Square up our fabric by simply lining up with your ruler and trimming. And cutting another 2.5-inch strip. And measure twice and cut once. Once you do this for all 3 fabrics, you will begin to put your strip sets together. Because we've chosen the print as our center, we will go ahead and take our fabric, line up our selvages with the right sides together, and I like to take them to my iron and give them a quick press just to kind of heat set them together. And that way you don't have to pin, and it saves a little bit of time. And then with your 1/4 of an inch, we will sew down the edge of our strip set. There's no need to backstitch in quilting because your threads will be caught in each block. And it's always a good idea to hold your threads so they don't get knotted. Okay. Instead of finishing that, I will show you I have one sewn together already. And what I'm going to do is once you have your first strip set sewn together, you'll take it to your iron and just heat set by simply with a dry iron, like an up and down motion, because you don't want to stretch your fabric. And that'll set the seam. And then you want to press to the darker fabric, and you're doing that so you don't have a shadow. And that's simply by taking your hot dry iron and pressing to the darker side of the fabric. Once you're complete, then you take your 3rd fabric and layer it on top of the print. You want to make sure you layer it on top of the print so you can stay consistent with the pattern you want to create. Once again, take your iron and just kind of heat set it to the fabric. And it just kind of helps it stay in place as you sew. Take it to your machine. When sewing your 3rd strip together, it's a great idea to reverse the sewing direction as you add your strips. This way it'll avoid the bow in the fabric, because if you continue to sew in one direction, the fabric will eventually stretch. And we're going to stitch a 1/4 of an inch down the side. Once you have your strip set sewn together, you'll want to even off the edge so you'll have a perfect 90-degree angle. And you take your ruler and you line up your fabric pieces and go ahead and trim. Make sure that you're trimming all 3 fabrics so you know you'll have a perfect 90-degree edge. Then you'll want to flip it around, line it up with your mat so you know it'll be straight, and go ahead and trim at 9.5 inches, which is the width of your block. And go ahead and make sure that you're measuring twice, so you'll only need to cut once. And you'll have your block. With this simple method of sewing strips together, you can make several quilts. For example, in this quilt, you can see there's 4 different strip sets, and it can be made quickly and you'll be done before you know it.